Okay, so I do the Devil's Tango a lot on this channel. Like, you guys know, almost every day back then when I was in high school, I would always do it. But have I told you about the freakiest girl I ever did? I am not joking. This girl was 2 ways till Friday freaky. And trust me when I say this, you want to subscribe because this story gets insane. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to an insane story. So today's story all takes place back in my grade 11 year. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you guys is that yes, I did a lot of the Devil's Tango growing up. And the reason for that was because I didn't want to die alone. So I would jump girl to girl no matter what. If she was fat, ugly, on a wheelchair, I had no standards. But the one girl that I ended up going with that was actually somewhat attractive ended up being the freakiest girl ever. I remember one time in grade 11, I was running down the school hallway basically trying to get to my next class because I was going to be late if I didn't make it. And I remember as I was running there, I ended up bumping into a girl. Now this girl, she looked like a normal, decent girl. Actually, funny enough, she actually looked like a really innocent girl. Like way too innocent for me. But I remember when I bumped into her, I ended up apologizing real quick, grabbing my bag from the ground, and ended up running. Now me and this girl, we ended up actually having the same backpack. We both had a green Roots backpack that was just any ordinary backpack. And I remember once I grabbed my bag, I started sprinting towards my next class. Now when I got to my next class, I remember I ended up sitting down and opening my bag, getting ready for my books. But once I ended up opening my backpack, I am not joking, I realized that it wasn't mine. I was so confused and I was stressing out because I was like, no, like my backpack, where is it? So I remember when class started and the bell rang, I ended up putting my hand up right away telling the teacher, hey, yeah, I'm sorry, this is not my backpack. I accidentally dropped my backpack somewhere else. Is it cool if I just go get it real quick? My teacher looks at me as if I'm crazy, which I don't blame him. That was a pretty crazy thing to happen. So I remember I ended up leaving my classroom and looking almost into every classroom window to find the girl that I bumped into because she probably had my backpack. I remember I ended up finding her in art class and I ran up to her and I said, hey, sorry, I think that's actually my backpack and this one's yours. She ends up looking at me and she's like, oh, okay, you didn't go my bag, did you? No, I just opened the first zipper and I realized it wasn't mine. Wait, why? Oh, nothing, don't worry about it. And we end up exchanging bags. Once I exchanged my bag with her, I ended up basically going back to class and I ended up doing my schoolwork. And then I remember what ended up happening next was actually kind of weird because I remember that same day, it was like towards the middle of the school day. And I remember I ended up basically going for lunch. And when I went for lunchtime, I remember a lot of people in my school were talking about a weird girl that carried around a toy. Now, I can't say what toy exactly because YouTube monetization, but let's just say this girl that everyone was talking about throughout the school was talking about a toy that was, well, not really actually meant for playing other than playing with yourself. Yeah, I know, kind of crazy, and I can't say anything more than that, but going on with the story. I remember when I heard about this, I started laughing, and I started wondering how people found out about this. But I remember right when the lunch bell rang to go to your next class, I ended up walking down the hallway once again, and I see this girl that I bumped into earlier, except she walks up to me and says, can I talk to you for a second? I ended up being really confused, and I'm like, yeah, sure. What do you want to talk about? Just follow me. Me and her, we ended up actually going outside where the football field was, but a bit to the corner where no one could see us. And then she told me, did you tell anyone what was in my bag? No, why? Well, like, people found out about my, like, toy. At that moment, when she said that, I knew everyone in the school was talking about this girl. And I'm like, oh, well, no, I didn't say anything. I didn't even know you had a toy. At that point, I remember this girl, she ended up not believing me and actually putting her bag down and saying, okay, seriously, you did tell people. You don't have to lie to me. I'm not lying. I didn't tell anyone. Really? You're still lying right now? And then she ended up going into her backpack, pulling out a toy. And let's just say this toy was one of those toys that vibrated that was bright pink. At that point, I was like kind of in shock about how she pulled it out on me, which is really weird to say, but going on. And I remember I looked at her and said, listen, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I didn't tell anybody. I don't know why you don't trust me. She ended up basically getting really embarrassed because she knew I was being sincere because I wasn't yelling back or nothing. And she basically ended up believing me and saying this, oh, I'm sorry, can you just not tell anyone this happened? I ended up looking her in the eyes and I'm like, yeah, like, it's okay. And then I ended up walking away. And at that moment, I remember me and her at that point kind of formed a connection because at that point she trusted me with a secret and then I also, you know, obeyed her trust. And I remember after that moment, weeks went on and this girl, she ended up following me on Instagram and following me on other social media platforms. And then one day, I want to say 2 weeks later when that happened, she ended up reaching out to me. She reached out to me and basically, you know, started being really nice to me, wanting to get to know me. And honestly, I was in grade 11. I didn't really care. She was hot. She was an attractive woman. So I said, why not? I got to know her and actually, funny enough, I ended up stalking her profile and I saw that she was a very religious girl. I'm not going to say anything else than that because obviously I don't want to be mean to any religions or anything, but she was very religious. Like, I'm talking like holy water, like get blessed kind of thing. And I remember in my mind, I was thinking, why would a girl like this hit me up? And then this is where things get, well, how do I put this? Freaky. Because I remember that night when she hit me up and we started talking, we ended up being really good friends, like really good. And then I remember the next day when I go out to school, and then she ended up coming up to me in the morning. She came up to me and said, Baba, I have a surprise for you. What is it? She ended up pulling out this toy once again. And then she ended up grabbing my phone and connecting my phone to the toy. At this point, I didn't know what was going on. And then afterwards, she ended up looking at me saying, okay, Baba, push this button. I ended up pushing the button and the toy started vibrating. At that point, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What am I supposed to do with this? And then she basically ended up going to the bathroom. And then she came back out and said, Baba, you have full control of me now. What? Is what I told her. I was so confused on what this girl was saying, and honestly, I did not believe anything she was trying to tell me, because that makes no sense. I have control of you because of my phone. And afterwards, she ended up telling me to press the button, and when I pressed the button, she started shaking and like basically like moaning kinda. And at this point, I was like, whoa, this is insane. I remember throughout the whole school day, she would always text me when we were in different classrooms and basically make me press the button. Like, this girl was like beyond freaky because she wanted to be controlled by me. She wanted to feel like a toy. I don't know how to say this. I'm not trying to sound mean. I'm not trying to get the channel taken down. YouTube, I'm trying to say this as mature as possible, but this girl is mad freaky. And it even gets worse from there, because I remember at that point, I was sitting one time at lunch that same day, and this girl ended up walking around me all the time, so she would notice that, you know, she wanted me to witness her sensation, I guess. And me being super confused, I remember what ended up happening was I pulled out my phone and I ended up going on the app that she downloaded, and I ended up pushing the button, and right away, my friend's girlfriend ends up looking at me saying, Baba, what are you doing with that? Nothing is what I said. I ended up putting my phone away and closing it right away. And I remember the girl ended up looking at me from far away, being confused of why I just turned it off. Things got really awkward, and I remember I tried to play it off, and I did, and luckily she believes me. And well, and I think what ends up happening next was the part where things got, well, beyond freaky. Because I remember when that school day ended, this girl ended up coming up to me, and she said, oh, Baba, like, do you want to come back to my house? We can do the Devil's Tango. I'm dying for you right now. And then I told her, like, oh no, it's okay. Like, I'm good, you know, like I'm not interested to do anything. And then that's when she looked at me and she's like, oh, you need to be convinced, huh? She ends up going in her backpack and pulling out this thing that looks like a plug, but it's like a really weird shape. And she said, I'll let you use this on me. At that point, I remember I looked at her and I'm like, yo, put that away. Like, what are you doing? And I told her how, you know, I wasn't interested in anything. She ends up looking at me really confused and she's like, oh, you just don't know how to have fun. And then she ended up leaving. Yeah, she literally just walked away as if everything was normal. I was really confused from that day, and actually, funny enough, I remember since I still had the app downloaded, one day I ended up just using it to see if like anything would happen, and I ended up seeing her backpack vibrate, which was funny. But you know, overall, I gotta say, just be careful who you talk to, and also like and subscribe for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.